Hey everybody, welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and community news. I am your host, Chris Vo, and joining me tonight is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy, howdy.
Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey everyone.
And warm welcome back to Mike Burns.
Hello everyone.
So, what's going on, guys? What's new?
I won. Whoop whoop.
Yes, Kevin won the virtual TTS tournament presented by Revive Collectibles from last weekend. What were you running again, Kevin?
Deathwatch.
Deathwatch,
Cool.
Yes. Yeah, you had a pretty good matchup in your first round, being Deathwatch against Xenos army.
My list was Eradicators, like a bunch of Eradicators, which are going to be great against your Knights, and then Deathwatch versus the rest of the field of Xenos. So, it was a pretty good meta choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, chat saying the orcs got crumped. Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is the competitive podcast. I suppose you could look at a field of 4 and determine that some things are good to go.
I want you to know that you could have known I was on Deathwatch probably 3 months ago.
Yeah, I would have bet.
I was not surprised that you were going to bring Deathwatch. It was very much like your faction.
Yeah, I took Ben by surprise by bringing Knights instead of like White Scars or Death Guard.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all listen to the show. What are the two factions that Chris talks about? He talks about his White Scars. He talks about his Death Guard. Occasionally, he talks about bringing Thousand Suns with his Death Guard. And he goes, all right, here's my list. It's 7 Knights. Okay.
It worked out okay.
Yeah, he got third.
Yeah.
As far as me, I've recently got my second vaccination, so I'm looking at maybe actually heading out and doing some in-person events at some point. Which now puts me in that awkward position of Kevin's filling this with the Chaos Space Marines that he's currently collecting. I'm building up my Sisters collection, but GW is making it pretty clear that Sisters are like really soon in the new Codex line, which is like, man, do I really want to glue these multi-meltas to these Sisters, or am I gonna get got?
No, you're gonna get got with something right around the corner like that.
Yeah, at the same time, it's hard to imagine a world where multi-meltas are gonna be bad.
That's fair,
unless they're just like completely pointed out of reasonable existence. But like, I don't know. I doubt Retributors are going to get through as they currently are. It's, if you've not played against Retributors, they are it's kind of problematic. It's insane how much damage they can do to.
Aren't they basically like super Eradicators?
Yeah, Retributors are more points of vision than Eradicators against any target in the game at a longer range. They have better rerolls. They can confirm. Yeah, they can choose how much damage they're going to do. They can spend command points to get more range and more damage to reroll rerolls against big psychers like Mortarion. They're capable of like almost killing a Mortarion in one shot for 3 command points. They take like, I think it's 13 wounds off of them. Considering Mortarion is 400 points or 450 and they are 160, it's like not. It's just not okay. Their damage output is unreal.
And he's like the tankiest you could ever expect 450 points to be. Like,
yeah, nothing else in the game stands up to them. Like I picked up like 14 intercessors with a unit of Retributors. It's silly, or 2 units of Retributors rather. It's yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, imagine
they are squishy.
Imagine how good it would be to determine what your dice roll was going to be without having to roll it in a dice game.
Yeah, they also in the current iteration like oftentimes end up like hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, which is it's a lot. It's just too much going on there. That being said, we've seen multi-meltas just be good on like anything, including things that like are unbuffed. Like even like we're even seeing some factions just bring like multi-meltas on dev squads to put in a drop pod because you can drop them in on turn 1 and like it's still fine. Like Devastator squads give 0 bonuses to multi-meltas and it's still just good.
Yep.
But anyway, So that's where I'm at right now. Is I'm looking to put some models together for real life tournaments, hoping not to get got. But I'm gonna start off with the things that are like obviously going to be fine.
Yeah,
troop choices, characters, things like that.
yeah. With it seems like things are starting to maybe start getting back to normal. So I've been feeling more motivated to actually like build and paint stuff. I still haven't actually done it, but I feel I've been thinking, hey, maybe I should go do that. Burns, what's new with you?
Not too much. I'm also in that same boat where I've begun to feel like maybe plastic matters again. So I'm now looking at my sealed boxes of Drukhari and thinking it's time to, first of all, finish completing the collection that I want to have, and then start actually making them tabletop presentable. Other than that, it's been a lot of Outriders, a lot of video games for the past week or two.
Is Outriders good?
Oh, that's a question. That's a difficult question to answer. It's been out for a week and I've put 87 hours in it, so I think I need to say that it's at least engaging. It has a lot of problems. In a couple weeks or months, it's probably going to be unqualified excellent game, but right now it's kind of beset by launch bugs and other things that are just not the best experience for people.
Yeah, I've been playing Outriders with Burns. I'm loving it too. But yeah, there's definitely some bugs, some balance issues. Patches are definitely swinging balance pretty widely one way or another. And we're also sort of the part of the game where it's like it's literally just come out. There's a gajillion build trees, so it's like unclear what's optimal, what needs to be nerfed, and what's just like community hype. But I'm enjoying it. If you're looking for something to do during the pandemic, I think it's worth your time.
Yeah.
For myself, for plastic models, I just picked up a box of Eradicators. I needed both the multi-melta and the heavy versions for some of my Deathwatch squads. I just picked up 2 Gladiators. I think 2 might have been excessive. I think a lot of us can play 1. 2's aggressive, but I like the look.
Yeah,
of
but
2.
at least you can also run them as impulsors.
Yeah, put guns on them. the Reaper's neat. All right, shall we get into our main topic?
Yeah, let's get into the main topic. So I didn't actually mention the episode number or name of the episode, but this is episode 38, Majors from Down Under. Named so because there was a major this past weekend in Australia. This was the Ratcon 2021 GT. And part of the reason why we wanted Mike on this podcast is because in first place was Drukhari. So let me bring up the list and we can start talking about it. Okay, so
I can read through it if that helps.
I pulled it up as well.
All right, so we have a patrol of the Cult of Strife. HQ is a succubus with an agonizer. The adrenaline drug. We've sent a command point to give it an extra warlord trait. It's got Quicksilver Fighter and a free relic, which is on the Triptych Whip. And we got a unit of looks like 10 witches, not upgraded. Oh no, they are upgraded. I'm sorry. So they are blood rides, shard nets and impalers, and then 5 incubi, and then another Cult of Strife patrol with another succubus. This one's got show stealer, razor flails, adrenalite, competitive edge, and dark lotus toxin. We got looks like 10 more witches, and then how many witches is this? 5? 6 witches. All right, so 10 witches, 6 witches.
I think it might be 7.
that's 7 witches.
7 witches. Oh, you're right. All right.
We're getting our numbers are getting real wonky here.
This is weird. All right, so we got 10 witches, 7 witches, 14 Hellions with high picks. 15 because of the squad leader.
I think you're right. It is 14.
Okay. And then we got a Dark Technomancer's patrol with 4 racks with a liquefier gun and
The leader.
a squad leader with a liquefier gun. Another squad that's exactly the same. So 2 liquefier guns and 2 5-man squads. 2 5-man squads incubi. 2 5-man scourge squads with blasters. And then
a shitload of raiders.
Bunch of raiders with disintegrator cannons. 3 disintegrator cannon raiders. And then
So Dark Lancers are free. So I assume that these raiders that do not have a weapon option listed as Dark Lancers.
Yeah. The new point format is well, it's very confusing. I would assume that you have to put the Dark Lance on them, right? So
yeah. Just to make sure that everybody who's watching understands that there's a lot of firepower going on here.
Yeah, so my first thought, so I don't know, I'm not too familiar with Dark Eldar, but I read over this list and I was like, wow, there's a lot of anti-vehicle, and there's a shitload of raiders. And I imagine that, there with the raiders there's just going to be a lot of maneuverability, a lot of mobility, which I can only imagine you stick the witches in there.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things that's going on with raiders right now, and Burns used this in his list. He used it differently, is raiders don't care what faction they're from, and they don't care what goes in them. It's just they are from a faction, and you put 10 Dark Eldar in them. And those two things do not need to match. So he can take all these Dark Technomancer raiders and put witches in them.
Can you remind me what Dark Technomancers does?
Yeah, does it do anything for the raiders? They must.
Yes.
Yeah, they are coven, so they get to benefit.
So new Dark Technomancers is you cannot reroll hit rolls of 1. When you shoot your gun, you may overcharge it. If you choose to overcharge it, you may not reroll hit rolls of 1, and you get +1 to wounds and +1 damage. If you roll a 1 to hit, you take 1 mortal wound if you are infantry, and D3 mortal wounds if you're a vehicle.
Yep.
Dark Eldar homunculi specifically don't really get rerolls unless they're in a real space raid anyway. So not being able to reroll doesn't hurt them, except for the part where they're taking mortal wounds. But basically, all these raiders are doing D3 +4 damage on strength 8 weapons with +1 to wounds. So they're wounding everything in the game on 2s, except for knights, which they wound on 3s. And then the disintegrator cannons they're 5 neg 3 2, so they're going to 5 neg 3 3 with +1 to wound, which is just annihilating Marines and Death Guard and any sort of heavy infantry.
Yeah, that's real deadly against things like heavy intercessors, eradicators, blade guard vets.
Yeah. Also, let's not forget there's 10 scourges with 4 blasters in each squad, so that's 8 deep striking melta guns that are also just in here. And then the racks themselves, liquefiers are 5 neg 2 1 d6 shots auto hitting, but you can still overcharge them. There's just no penalty because they don't roll to hit; they can't hurt themselves. So it's just strength 5 AP 2 +1 to wound at 2 damage, 2d6 shots per squad. So they're also kind of just melting things out of them. This squad's got a huge amount of firepower.
This is very much. I don't know Matt Maracelli, the player. I've never seen their previous games, but this is the most Harlequin Drukhari list I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's the impression that I was getting out of it. With all of the Melta or Melta equivalent guns, and then all of these boats, and I was just this seems like fusion pistol boats, but evil.
I was kind of there until we got to the last attachment. That's so much long range firepower. Because those raiders don't need to get anywhere close to their opponent. That just reaches across the table.
That's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of interesting things going on in here. In particular, I mean, there's a couple things that I've noted after our tournament, for sure. Things like having those incubi, having some racks around for our troop choices. The Scourge of the Blasters is quite interesting. The Blasters they're not Melta profiles, they're basically 18-inch assault blast cannons. They don't get the additional damage per shot.
That's right.
But they're excellent, and they're on a unit that can move 14 inches and fire and fade.
Deep strike.
And they're 100 points. So it's very interesting to see. I know I personally want to try Scourge with a healthy number of Dark Lances. So I'm curious to see how these performed. The 14 Hellions are very interesting. It's not something that I haven't put them in any lists, but they're exceptionally powerful now. I mean, their data card, I think it was +1 attack, +1 wound, +1 2 wounds, +1 toughness and strength. They might be the most improved model from 8th to 9th edition ever.
Yeah, they were really bad in 8th, and I think their improvements make them reasonable in 9th. But the thing that makes them scary is that stratagem, where they fly over a unit and they just drop mortal wounds on them.
Yes.
Because I believe it's 1d6 per Hellion in the unit. Every 5 ups to mortal wound, you get +1 on the roll if you're targeting infantry, which means that the squad is just doing 7 mortal wounds on average for I think it's 1 command point.
Yeah, and we don't have a cap, which is dramatically I feel many of these kinds of stratagems or these abilities have always have tended to have caps on them, but no cap for this one. So go nuts.
I think as of now, this one can target characters, which like hopefully goes away. But like you can just pop characters with this, if I remember correct. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. Eviscerating flyby. There's no cap on it.
Yeah.
Can it hit characters?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very powerful effect that was put on a model that also just had lots of improvements. It's a very powerful effect. Hypex is the cult. The witch cults are like the area of Drukhari that I'm like the least interested in from like a hobbyist perspective.
Hypex is movement.
Is the movement one? Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's plus 3 inches of movement, and they're already basically bikes, so they're just going wherever they want, which really combines with the fact that they want to fly over stuff.
Yeah, so plus 3 inches of movement. They have base 14-inch move. Like, you're getting to wherever you want to be.
Let's talk about the witch stuff. So he brought 2 patrols of the Cult of Strife, which means presumably he brought this in order to access the detachment bonus.
So what does Cult of Strife do for the witches?
So I think most importantly, I believe that they are the one that gets access to a fight twice stratagem for their triptych wielding succubus, which might be the coolest succubus that you can come up with. Let's see. I believe that's also the 2 additional. I believe the warlord trait they took was 2 additional attacks.
Also, Cult of Strife is the faction that gets access to the Codex supplement. Like, there's the Codex supplement for Cult of Strife. So this attachment has access to like 5 more stratagems than they would normally have.
Absolutely.
So for 2 CP, they can pick one of these witch units and have it reroll all hits and wounds. And on the Blood Brides, because they're low strength, but their 6 to wound or AP 4, that basically, I mean, we've all seen what Doom does to like Eldar shooting. These guys are basically doing that in melee. They're like, all right, 6 to hit or gajillion AP, or sorry, 6 to wound or gajillion AP, and they just like reroll their wound rolls.
Yeah, the Triptych Whip is also a very fascinating weapon because it's a poison weapon, but it's a poison weapon of 2+, which is a new Drukhari thing in this edition, where previously poison weapons were always on 4s when you were rolling your wound roll. Here it kind of dictates where it might be, and Triptych Whip Succubus is hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, -2 damage apiece, and it's making an unbelievable amount of attacks.
And you can pay 2 CP to fight again.
It's like 9, right? Like something silly.
Yeah, it is a lot. Let's see.
I got a question for you, Burns.
Sure.
I know I was talking with you about your list after the tournament, and you felt like the witch stuff was a little underwhelming. Do you feel like it's kind of because they were balanced around the Cult of Strife, possibly?
So I'd have to look more into. So speaking only about the Codex, I don't want to say so just yet. The two armies that I fought in the tournament were Chris's Knights List and Kevin's Deathwatch. Both of whom are both of those armies being just incredibly tanky threats with lots of wounds. And I think the witches have, or the witches, at least the witches that I brought, might have a difficult time piercing through them. I was thrilled with how my succubus played. For those who didn't catch the stream, I took a succubus from Red Grief, which gives access to a 3 damage relic. So a little bit different than going for the whip, but the 3 damage relic's kind of, neg 3 damage is a sweet weapon profile.
I'll be completely
really
honest with you.
fast.
I'll be completely honest with you, Burns. I forgot that you had brought witches, which is how little that they did.
Yeah, they are very much like they're exceptionally fragile. In an already fragile army, you're looking at very fragile units. So for both of my games, I found that they were trying to do some very technical things instead of doing what they should really be doing, which is just throwing buckets of dice at something. I think this list, not only is this list running what I think is the better succubus, I go back and forth thinking about whether the red glaive, the blood glaive, which is what I ran, and the triptych whip, whether which one's better. They both have some really fascinating options to them. But I think with witches, I think you get more out of them if you invest more into them.
Yeah, there's actually 2 succubi in here, right? One of them has the Triptych Whip and Quicksilver Fighter, which is just like a gajillion attacks, and the other one has Show Stealer, which is the upgrade, right, where they can consolidate away from your opponent, and then Competitive Edge, and Dark Lotus Toxin. Competitive Edge is the... Actually, don't know what that is. That might be one of the Cult of Strife specific ones. I think that's reroll all wound rolls.
Is Competitive Edge the one where you get to reroll all failed things that failed to do damage?
No, that's like Perfected something or Perfectionist.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think what this list. I mean, one of the things that I'm getting out of this list is that Succubi are great. You should take more of them, perhaps.
Yes, I felt the same thing. It was like, man, the witches were really underwhelming, and then the Succubi just like vaulted over some space marines and killed 2 characters. It's like, oh, okay, well, that one was good.
Yeah, that's one of the funny things about this Drukhari. Most factions in this game nowadays are limited to like kind of 3 HQ. You're paying command points, and that's just not Drukhari. Like you actually kind of have like you can actually bring some like melee beat stick characters and not feel like you're giving up boosting your units.
Yeah, I also found that in general, I'm willing to pay CP for these HQs. They blend very well. In particular, Drazar, who makes his way onto this list as well. I've moved from, so during the tournament, I brought a brigade. The only reason I brought a brigade really was because I wanted Drazar and I wasn't sure how much I wanted to pay for him in terms of command points. Afterwards, I determined that the awkwardness of a brigade didn't quite, like, I'd rather just pay the 2 CP. I think he's just like, he's incredible, and he's also buffing the most incredible unit in the entire codex.
I want to talk about Incubi a bit because you use them very well, and there's also a bunch in here. So
yeah, so there's a lot of Incubi in this list, and I'm curious as to what their role would be here.
There's 3 units of 5. Looks like.
Yep.
Yeah, there's 3 units of 5 Incubi in this list.
So I'm kind of curious when I see the 3 min-sized Incubi squads. I love the Incubi. I'm wondering if they're trying to make use of the leadership tester here, the Terrorizers. I have to get the official name from the book, but when I see min-sized squads, I want to imagine that they're trying to do something with the ability to basically, when you have an Incubi within engagement range at the start of the fight phase, you roll 2d6, and if you beat your opponent's leadership of the thing that's within range, they have to fight last. They have to fight after all of your eligible units have fought. And this proved to be amazing in the tournament. And I think that that's the primary reason we got min-sized squads of Incubi going on here.
Yeah, for those of you who are not watching the stream, we had some Fs in chat when a Knight Armiger charged Drazar and like the 3 surviving Incubi that were next to him. Drazar made it fight last, and then it got murdered in melee before he even got to fight. It was like, oh wow, that was no one. I was like, all right, the Knight's gonna like lose some wounds, right? It's like but now like Drazar just hits that hard. Drazar is unbelievable in melee.
Yes, both him and his Incubi brother, and they're both incredible. They put out the right amount of attacks. They do the right amount. Their profile is excellent. They're hitting naturally on 2s, which is fantastic. And they're one like semi-negative, which is like they have an awkward strength profile. I think of 5 when they combine their weapon and their profile, their basic strength, is negated by the fact that Drazar has a +1 to wound aura, which are completely busted. So
does he affect himself with that?
I believe he does. I believe he does.
All right,
I'll get back to you on that.
Fair enough. Do I talk about second place real quick, or in this event?
Yeah, let's talk about second place.
All right, second place was Necrons. So we've got Relentlessly Expansionists with Eternal Conquerors battalion, which means that at the beginning of the game, this whole battalion moves 6 inches. Everything in this battalion is OBSEC, and anything that was already OBSEC is now double OBSEC. We've got 3 units of Crypto Thralls, which are basically just servitors. A Chronomancer with the Counter-Temporal Nanomines. This is basically the Space Marine orbital bombardment strat, where it points at a place and it goes, that place is going to explode. And then the next turn it does a bunch of more runes around in the area. A Technomancer with the Voltaic Staff, which is just a good shooty staff. 2 Chronomancers, one of which has the Hypermaterial Ablator, which lets him pick a Necron Warrior unit and gives it cover from shots that are originating out of 12 inches from itself. an Overlord with the Relic Reanimation Orb, a Void Scythe, and Eternal Madness, which I think is a leadership buff around itself. Then we got 16 Necron Warriors with the Gauss Reaper. That's the or 12-inch assault 2/5 -2/1 gun. A Synoptic Reanimator, my favorite unit. 2 Synoptic Spiders, and then 27 Synoptic Scarabs. So this list is just holding objectives, and it's
never
not particularly interested in doing anything else. It's going to pick 2 units, give them 5 of vulnerable saves, pick 1, give it cover outside of 12 inches, probably one of the ones towards the back. The Synaptic Reanimator is going to hide in a building, and then one of these 20-man Necron Warrior blobs is going to stretch back to it, so that they have a 4-up resurrection rerolling ones. The Overlord can reanimate a unit. The Technomancer can bring back D3 guys a turn. The Spiders reanimate Scarabs. The Scarabs have a bajillion wounds each. There's just so much happening here. And then we've brought a bunch of basically server units and the Crypto Thralls to do engage in fronts, score points, do secondaries, all those things. This list is just here to score points. It'll shoot you if you get close to it. The Gauss Reapers are choppy, but they're not going to reach out and hurt you. The game plan here is just actually put 120 models in the middle of the table. That's not true. It's not that many. Put 100 models in the middle of the table, but many of which are 4 wounds each, and then you just sit there for 5 turns.
Yeah, and then just rack up the points.
That's the whole plan.
I know they say this is Necrons, but I'm seeing Papa Nurgle's influence here.
Yeah, this is the most Ben Rubenstein Necron list I've seen. This is so this is a very classical list that this is a very classical tournament list where you're taking your innate strengths of the Necrons, their innate toughness, and you're just this is the way I'm going to win, and there's really nothing else I'm doing here. And this is very neat because it's very different from the Necron lists that have popped up on top 4 in the past.
Yeah, this is a list that's going to just not take any secondaries to care about its opponent. It's just be yeah, we're going to engage in all fronts, raise the banners high, and oh goodness, we might be
Scramblers.
Well, you can't scramble and engage. Right. I was going to say it might be while we stand, we fight. These Necron Warrior blobs have every possible defensive buff on them. You might lose 1. I don't know that you're going to lose 3.
Yeah, because those are the most expensive units. So you got to chew through 20 of the models with reanimation protocols, and then it's they got the resurrection orb and the reanimator.
Yeah.
And it's not they have to actually commit them early. They can play the first half of the game with the 27 Scarab Swarms. Those are obsec. They have 4 wounds each. These are holding objectives.
These 4-up saves and the this list is exactly the kind of list I would want to bring a ton of witches against. If I was to go with the cult, the more witch cult centric Drukhari, because you need a lot of attacks to get through this kind of amount of resiliency.
Yeah, this is exactly what you need witches. You need something that can kill 20 Necron Warriors. And this is one of the reasons I love the Necron Codex too, because we also recently saw a high-performing Necron list that brought 0 warriors and 11 vehicles. That Codex goes deep, and I think we're gonna see a lot out of the Necron Codex as the meta evolves. But I just want to point out both these lists, they're both powerful. I don't know if either of them is the most powerful thing you can do at that Codex, or even the most powerful thing that exists. But neither of them are things we've seen before, and neither of them are from factions that have been massively popular and competitive recently. And I think that goes a long way. When you're just even not playing Gotcha 40k, but if you're not familiar, super familiar with the list, it is really challenging to play effectively against it. And these are both just
you're just gonna have a
lists.
lack of experience against the list.
Yeah, and these are both weird lists that are doing a lot.
So I know these 2 face each other in the final round, right? Or was
assume so.
I'm thinking about that Drukhari list, and they spend a lot of points on like last cannon-esque things, and they somehow like beat this Necron list that kind of feels like if you spent a third of your list on last cannons, you should be losing. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm given that Necron's lost that matchup, it makes me think Drukhari are like really, really strong.
Uh, keep in mind that the witches are like the thing that just like picks up 20 Necron warriors.
Yeah. So what? So I watch a lot of like Tabletop Titans, and I watch other media as well. And the general consensus seems to be that like one of the best things to throw at a 20-man blob is that 10-man Hecatrix Blood Bride witch squad. It actually just picks up 20 Necron warriors. And if you can do that with, if you, and this list has 2 of them, if you pick up 40 Necron warriors on the turn, it could maybe even turn 1, depending on what the deployment looked like. It's a disaster for our Necron friends.
Yep. Yeah, I think that that is probably true. And then the last cannons are like fine against the Scarab Swarms. They 4 wounds each. Like it's not like there's no target for them. Obviously, you're wasting a lot of points on like strength because Scarab Swarms are T3, but it's not like there's no target whatsoever.
Fair enough. And I guess it's actually really good against Scarab Swords because it's a bunch of one-shot last cannons.
Yeah, I've been never reanimating off of it.
Yeah, this is like the perfect Necron list. If all I feel like this would be the perfect Necron list if you know you're only facing Marines, because Marines just don't. I feel like the competitive Marines right now don't put out the like sheer amount of fire necessary to take this kind of list off the table in a reasonable time. But he ran into Drukhari at the very end.
That's why you play Death Watch.
Yeah. Also, those Hellions are gonna completely screw up Necron warrior units. Like those Hellions, like 7, like Necron. You don't get to reanimate for mortal wounds, so just like, oh, I lost 7 Necron warriors, which means like now when they get either shot at or fought at, they might just all die before I can reanimate any of them. But beyond that, like both these lists are insane. And it's kind of exciting to see like where both these factions are going to innovate into. I'm also super happy to see the reanimator be on a top table, because they really did that model dirty with its original point cost, and now that's down to 80 points. Like Necron warriors with a 4-up reanimate rerolling ones, like how do you deal with that if you don't literally kill all of them in one swing? It's like, oh, I killed 18 of them, 2 of them lived, and then like 11 stood back up. Like more than half of them stand back up on average.
I'm interested in seeing how often that guy even had to hide the reanimator. As the edition has like kind of gone on, I've just seen gun ranges go shorter and shorter. Like it feels like all of our anti-tank guns are 24-inch Melta, which is like, don't get me wrong, it's far, but that list can like really push you back.
Yeah, we do have 3 raiders that have 36-inch range guns that are like perfect for killing reanimators, but it's certainly possible it might have been able to get hidden away.
Yeah, there's 4 actually. There's 7 raiders in this list. There's 3 disintegrator cannons and 4 with the last cannon.
So chat's got a good point where for this particular list, the Necron specific secondary for objective scanning would be good. And
that one, if I remember correctly, your opponent picks which objectives you have to scan, which is not good.
No, you alternate picking starting with your
right.
opponent.
So you're gonna have 1 though.
Yeah, so you get to pick 1. Your opponent picks 2, and then you basically have to raise the banners on them.
Yeah, but you're never gonna raise the banners on the ones that your opponent picked in their own deployment zone.
While that's true, it does. I mean, you score 3 points every time a unit from your army does it. It's only
midfield objectives. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is this the one? I'm sorry. This is the one the Synoptics can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's probably useful for this one. I believe that one is under
It's Shadow Ops.
Yeah, the thing with that one is that raise the banner high is going to be better for this faction most of the time. But yes, that one, sometimes that one will be good. Just because raise the banners. Keep in mind, Necrons also have like the silly like protocols thing where they can like just like break the rules on like what they're allowed to do in the same turn. And one of the rules they can break is they are allowed to shoot and do actions at the same time. So like your Necron warriors can like Veil of Darkness 4, raise the banner on the midfield objective, get every single defensive buff at the same time, and then just be like, yeah, we've raised banners like on the center field objective. It's going to take you a whole turn to deal with us, and then there's going to be 27 scarabs on this next turn that are OPSEC.
Yeah, Let's move on to third place.
Sure.
Let's see. Third place was Adam Camilleri, and he brought Dark Angels.
So I don't know if you know this, Chris, but Burns is also our local Dark Angels expert. So
Oh, really?
I think we should make him read this one.
Oh boy. Yeah, I can certainly read it. So this list is running. We have a patrol and a vanguard detachment. Our patrol seems to be running. We have a lieutenant. We have a Ring-Wing Talonmaster, which is the flying lieutenant of the Raven Wing. We have a max 10-man size squad of infiltrators and attack bike squad. 2 Raven Wing Dark Talons, and that rounds out sort of our patrol. And then with our vanguard, we have a lieutenant, a Blade Guard Ancient, a Raven Wing Apothecary, a Terminator Assault Squad with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields, and an additional Terminator Assault Squad with Thunderhammers. And we actually have a split in here. We seem to have 4. Oh, actually, I suppose 5 if you include the Sergeant with Storm Shields and Thunderhammers, and then 5 Terminators with Lightning Claws paired up. And that brings up our 2,000-point list.
And looks like the second Talon Master is the Warlord in this Vanguard attachment, which means that those Terminator Assault Squads have OBSEC. And this attachment doesn't cost command points.
Yes.
Wait. Am I misreading this? Does he have a Dark Angels pure detachment and then a successor detachment as a patrol? Am I reading that? Scroll up.
You are correct.
Interesting. Yeah, he has Dark Angel Successor listed.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They're Bolter Fusillades, Master Artisans, and then the second one.
Doesn't that really mess with things? You
lose your Super Doctrine.
So the rules for the death, like the wing specific detachments, are complicated and require lots of verbiage that I have not memorized, and I don't have the codex near me.
If I'm 90% sure, you have to have the actual factual chapter trait to take them. But it doesn't mess up. It's all the limitations on like the Vanguard attachment is just the Vanguard attachment. It doesn't care about the rest of the army. So this is legal. But I think he gave up his Super Doctrine for this.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. The things that point out to me, the Dark Talons, Raven Wing are kind of the second fiddle right now to the Deathwing for Dark Angels competitive value. So it's nice. It's interesting to see what they were doing with more Raven Wing heavy setup over here.
About 2 Dark Talons.
Yeah.
So Dark Talons are the flyers.
Yep.
And they have 2 Hurricane Bolters each, and also a gun that, if I remember correctly, the new Dark Talon gun just shoots mortal wounds. Like on a successful wound, it just does 3 mortal wounds, and then the attack sense. With quite a few shots, which is like really, really interesting on an airplane. Man, this is wild.
Yeah, so we were rounding it out with about 15 Terminators, 2 squads, 1 in 10, 1 5. So plenty of unmovable stuff to go up the middle of the table. I'm kind of curious about the Talon Master's Warlord relics, Warlord traits and relics.
So it's got Imperium Sword, which is just quite
extra
better.
attack.
Okay.
And then the Heavenfall Blade. What does the Heavenfall Blade do?
It's just like a relic power sword.
Okay.
And then the other one has Brilliant Strategist, which is get command points back on a 5-up. Or is that the rollback a doctrine?
It's rollback a doctrine.
It used to be CP regen for 8th edition.
Gotcha.
Now, Doctrine.
8th edition, that same thing gave you command points. Now it is you can pick a unit and it's in a different doctrine. Fair enough. And then Arbiter's Gaze. I have no idea what that one is.
Is that the you auto counter spell?
No, that's a Deathwing only one. This guy's Ravenwing.
Is that the I can snipe with my guns? I have the book downstairs. I could find this out.
I do not know. I think the more interesting thing about this army though is the 2 Dark Talents and then like the mix of multiple attachments.
You said the Dark Talon, is it just like you hit and you do wounds, or do you have to wound?
You have the wounds, but it's like strength 1,000,000.
You presumably heavy lieutenant. Yeah, I understand what that chapter trait is, because it just, all those units that he's bringing in that detachment are just like a bunch of really good bolters or high impact guns that you're going to be using the reroll one hit roll with. So like,
Yeah. I'm super into bolter fusillades plus master artisans on Dark Talons. Like that just sounds incredibly efficient.
So, just to interject, the Arbiter's Gaze is a relic that, when resolving an attack made with a model with this relic, ignore negative hit roll modifiers and ballistic skill modifiers. When firing Overwatch, they use their ballistic skill. Curious.
Doesn't seem worth it, but okay. Let's talk about this last list, I guess. And this one is Space Wolves. Chris, wanna run us down Space Wolves?
Yeah, let's talk about Space Wolves. So this is Boyd Morale. He brought a battalion of wolves. So for HQs, he brought Bjorn. He got a librarian who he gave a jump pack to. So this is a jump librarian with Null Zone and Murderous Hurricane. I also gave him a Combi Melta. The Rights of War,
Okay.
the Rights of War trait, and the Tome of Malkador relic. His last HQ is a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, again with a Combi Melta. Warrior of Legend, Armor of Russ, and a Thunderhammer. Troops wise, nothing terribly interesting troops wise. He brought 2 squads of Grey Hunters, 5 Grey Hunters, and a Terminator Sergeant with a Thunderhammer. And then an Intercessor squad, just 5 of them. But they did give him the Morkai's Teeth Bolts on the Sergeant. Elites, he's got a squad of 4 Blade Guard vets, Judiciar, Murderfang, Redemptor Dread with the plasma gun, and a Wolfen Dreadnought with the Great Axe and Blizzard Shield.
It's the Dreadnought that I love.
And then
those things are super pushed for 125 points.
And then rounding it off, he's got a unit of Norwegian Wolves and Thunderwolf Cav with shields and hammers, and then a Shield Dome Impulsor. So this guy goes pretty heavy on the Dreadnoughts.
Bunch of Dreadnoughts. He's got 4 of them: a Wolfen Dreadnought, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and Bjorn. So 3 Dreadnoughts with bunch of This is
Don't forget
huge
Murderfang.
amount of Thunderhammers in this list.
Murderfang
Everything is a
Dread.
Thunderhammer. Oh, that is Murderfang?
Murderfang the angriest Dreadnought?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, a Wolfen Dreadnought, a Redemptor Dreadnought, Murderfang, and Bjorn. So 2 named Dreadnoughts. The Wolfen Dreadnought and a Redemptor Dreadnought. Yeah, there's just a lot happening here.
Yeah, and it's also like a lot of high mobility characters with multi-meltas, or combi meltas rather. I imagine this is obviously playing like Hero Hammer, but like it's also Dreadnought Hero Hammer.
Yeah, it's a lot better when your heroes are T7 with 8 wounds.
Yeah. But even the infantry heroes, they've got the combi melts, so I imagine like he's probably just catapulting them to try to kill anything that's a threat to the Dreadnoughts, like anything toting like a laser cannon or dark lance or anything like that. And then just trying to let the Dreadnoughts do work.
Yeah. And I can see where this is strong, and I also am not surprised to see it coming out underneath these other 3 lists. I think against all 3 of them, it's going to have some really huge issues, right? Like against this Deathwing list, all your Strength 8 weapons kind of just bounce. Against 1,000,000 Necron Warriors, you just don't have the damage output with Thunderhammers to kill them. And against the Dark Eldar, I think all those Dark Lances are just popping your Dreadnoughts too fast for you to really be playing the game. The last thing I wanted to talk about, not if are we also at the GT, or is there anything else you guys want to add?
I mean, the Space Wolf list is I don't think there's a lot of nuance there.
Yeah. So last thing I wanted to talk about, and by me I mean Burns. I want to talk, and Kevin. I want you guys to both talk about your lists, how you felt they performed at the event, and how you would change them. Both after having played them at the event and having thought about them for a while. And I know we've all had discussions off of the air, but I was hoping you could share kind of like what your thoughts were on how you played, if you played differently, and if you'd bring different if you're going to go again. Let's start with I don't know, Kevin, because we've been putting Burns on the spot a lot.
All right. So as you know, I put the heavy intercessor in thinking they could do something that they couldn't. I thought they were still going to feel fine. They did not feel fine. I would not have that unit in there. As it was, I kind of was hoping I had like 2 smaller units, or like maybe a veteran squad with like a five-man bike squad to kind of like have more mobility, be able to go out and do things. I actually really liked the veteran kill team squad that I had. Though I wish I had one more guy in it so I could like split it up, but like maybe taking 2 of that type of squad where it can kind of like reach out and grab things. It's pseudo shooty, pseudo melee, but can get to important places. There's a relic in the book that has to go on a guy with a storm shield, and it gives a 6-inch aura of a 5-up invuln save to core and characters actually. And I'm thinking about taking my Watchmaster and downgrading him, or side grading him into a captain on a bike with a storm shield. That way I can have a little bit more mobility to kind of play around with those units that I was just talking about, but also have invuln saves on some of my units, because the more I was playing, the more I kind of realized that my heavy intercessor squads, people were firing their anti-tank rounds into them, so having an invuln saves was actually like going to be super relevant. Sounds obvious, but
So that unit just wasn't doing it for you.
yeah, the heavy intercessors weren't the Indominator, the 2 Indominator kill teams would love a 5-up invuln save.
Gotcha.
And those are not going away.
Yeah, those seemed like they did a lot of work.
I was pretty okay with the Spectre skill team. I didn't actually fight a lot of like deep striking things. And if Drukhari continued to kind of be where the meta is going, they kind of just like actually just teleport on you. So I don't know. They kind of were just there to like zone out and forward deploy, and I feel like I could just actually have like bike units that are just mobile and kind of do the same thing with and actually do more in the game.
They do a lot against like scourges coming in with blasters and like against the general meta though. Do you think they just not doing not do you think they just cost too much to be worth putting in?
Is that a yes?
I don't know. I question with the scourges, if I just have a unit, let's say you have the unit you want to shoot, and then I have another unit that's a little bit further ahead. Yes, the scourge can come
That's
in,
fair.
shoot the unit that you want to, but I can auspex with the other unit. Like if I factor in that auspex can kind of be a 12-inch range, scourges kind of do die to like an auspex over a shot with most of my units.
Yeah. Sure.
So I feel like I can just utilize that. I don't know. It would take some playing. I'm not necessarily. I don't think I'm going to cut them at this point, but they didn't do a lot in the games, in my opinion. So they're if they continue to not do a lot, then they're on the way out.
Makes
Uh,
sense.
I will also acknowledge that they're the type of unit that's it's sometimes not as obvious how much they're doing, because they're impacting your opponent's decision more than they have like a passive impact sometimes.
Yeah, you get their value, but it's not in killing power that they make their points.
No. I more mean when your opponent knows how much of an impact they are more than you do sometimes is the secret. there are in games there are just some effects that are like. Turns out that like even if you never utilize it, the fact that it was there is more important. So perhaps I'm undervaluing it. As I'll acknowledge that.
You don't know exactly how many times I thought, oh, I'd like to put these Scourge down, but I can't because this is here. I didn't vocalize that ever, so you don't have a great idea of perhaps how valuable they are. Yeah, I can see that.
All right, Burns, that means you're up.
All right. So yes, going into the tournament, I had what I thought was a pretty rough list, or at least a real list that needs a lot of shine, but shine that couldn't be applied because the codex was so new. So for those who haven't seen it, I would recommend you definitely go watch the VOD if it's available of the tournament. But I brought a Drukhari Brigade, which necessitates bringing a lot of different things to fill out all those attachment slots. But what it did do is it allowed me to kind of get a good general opinion about a lot of the different options that are available for Drukhari. And most of them are really positive. And even for the things that I thought didn't work so well on my list, I think can do very well in lists that are more catered to them. So things that I think were amazing, Incubi. I've already mentioned this before, but I think Incubi are sort of the stellar display. Like they are like the showcase unit for the Codex. They're an excellent model, on a thematic sense. They look amazing, and now they play amazing as well. Things that I didn't realize going into the tournament that I realize now. Transports are amazing bullies, and you can use them in ways that might not necessarily be intuitive when they have a bunch of 36-inch cannons on them. There are often times where I would use my transports, which are only 85 points. I know those who own rhinos are probably pretty upset about this because raiders are just it's dramatic to see a difference between a raider and a rhino. But being able to open the door to very dangerous charges for my Incubi, which are pretty weak normally. They have a 3-up save. They only have 1 wound. They can kind of fall to some very basic fire. But if you have a raider around, you can just charge that raider in, eat up all the Overwatch if they even bother Overwatching, and then get those Incubi in to do the damage they need to do. So yeah, Incubi were great. Transports were great. As we spoke about earlier, the witches weren't so great in my list, but I think witches are exceptionally powerful. They just need a proper niche for it, which is kind of a great place for them to be, because I think that's a very space elf, Eldari trait, is they are very good at this very specific purpose, and you have to be a good enough player to exploit it and find out when that specialty can really be used. Things that I would change, I would get rid of my Taloses. So part of the brigade was bringing a bunch of 3 Taloses. They are a point sufficient model. They bring these twin heat lances, which are fairly damaging, and they also have a pretty mean melee attack. But I didn't really get to use them as much as I wanted to. It ended up being awkward for deployment because I had so much going on. I think that in general, a homunculus coven specific lists that focused on homunculi, racks, Taloses, chronoses, grotesques maybe. I think there's a lot of play here, and I think I can say the same thing about witch cults, and to a lesser extent the cabals as well. I think that all 3 of these sub-factions have a lot of reach in the codex, depending on how you want to do it. What else? I think that real space raids are insane. So I know we just talked about a Drukhari list that did not use a real space raid, and that's excellent because I think it shows a little bit just how many options you have as a player of Drukhari.
Do you want to go over real quick what a real space raid gives you?
Yeah, so real space raids are these fascinating it's a page of rules, but essentially what it says is you can make a detachment, and if your detachment warlord is an Archon, you can bring a succubus and homunculi. And they each have so these represent the 3 different sub-factions of Drukhari: cabals, witch cults, and homunculus covens. And they each get to choose their sub-faction traits where normally you'd have to choose 1 per detachment. What this lets you do is create some really kind of all over the place combination of sub-traits that can really let you excel with your game plan. So for instance, I was able to, in my real space raid, bring Cabal of the Black Heart, which has a lot of great bonuses for Coblites, but also Blades for Hire, which include Incubi, Scourge. You haven't even talked about Scourge, but they're also amazing.
And that one actually, right? Don't they only specifically give those bonuses out in real space? Bringing Cabal of the Black Heart lets them give are like Cabal like bonuses to your what they call Blades for Hire?
Yeah, I believe it's the. I think they work in tandem. I don't know the exact separation, but I know that Cabal the Blackheart is the sort of Blades for Hire specialization Cabal because they are, as Drupal. This now we're getting narrative that basically Vex controls a lot of the mercenary companies, and he gets to determine who works and who doesn't.
Awesome.
But
when that happens.
Yeah. So apart from the Cabal, we also had Homunculus Coven, and this is something that I also realized when I went into this. Prophets of Flesh, which is the Homunculus Coven I chose, and was also, I think, the premier Homunculus Coven for 8th edition when there was a couple tournaments that had some Drukhari do well with a lot of racks. Prophets of Flesh give non-vehicle, I believe non-monsters. I have to double check. Basically, lets your racks have transhuman for weapons that have less than strength 8. On the face of that, when I first read it, I was like, well, it's conditional transhuman. They're just gonna, they might eat like a lot of las cannon shots or whatever. There might be something that they would be shot at that this would be negligible. It turns out it's great. It turns out it's just unambiguously fantastic. Racks are like a T4, T5 conditional model, so there's a lot of incidental weapons that are strength 6 and in the night matchup strength 7 that were just negated by this transhuman-esque effect.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to note that your faction brings some pretty good vehicles in the form of the Raiders. So it's like, if they had no other targets, like you're bringing only infantry, then yeah, they would probably fire the las cannons there. But they have targets that they like. I'm gonna say care about more. For the las cannons.
I agree. I think the transports that I brought, so I brought fewer transports than this list. I want to bring more transports, not as many as the list that we just read, but quite a few. And I think that, the Prophets of Flesh ability kind of just, it makes it so that the 10-man unit of racks upgraded to Hemocytes in my list, and I think should probably be upgraded more often than not if you're bringing them, because they'll end up on turn 4, it's a little late, but on turn 1, they'll have a 5-up Feel No Pain and a 6-up, or a 5-up Invulnerable save, and then later on they'll have a 4-up Invulnerable and a 5-up Feel No. They're just very tanky. And what you're doing there is like, they'll sit on a point, and your opponents are extremely disinclined from trying to take them off that point.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning, right, that normally you only can upgrade one guy in one of your 3 HQs in a detachment, and then that HQ's corresponding troop choice can be upgraded, and the Real Space Array lets you upgrade all 3 HQs and all 3 of their troop choices, which lets you bring the Coblite Troopborns, which I think you were also very impressed with, and the upgraded racks. Which not only do they have the better invulnerable save, they also ignore the first failed save every turn, which means that like you have heavy, you have to like super go into them, which just like feels miserable. Like being like, yes, my priority target for this turn is this like 4-up invulnerable save, toughness 5 model with Feel No Pains in the back with no guns. Like goodness, just leave them, I guess. And then the Coblite Troopborns, I don't know if you've mentioned those yet, but what are those bringing you?
So yeah, I mean, there's really, you could just go on and on about Drukhari, or at least I can. The Trueborn are essentially a squad of Drukhari Coblites, but their ballistic skills increase to 2. And they get an interesting piece of text that says this ballistic skill cannot be modified for any reason. This is fantastic, especially when you're putting a 10-man squad of Coblites, Trueborn, with 2 blasters and a Dark Lance into a vehicle and just having that thing jet around the entire board, dealing upwards of like, I don't know, if you have the Raider, we're looking at like 15 wounds to all kinds of things. So yeah, it's they all kind of provide, all 3 provide really excellent use cases for what is essentially 2 points per model upgrade.
I think we're probably going to see that exact combination, just like a lot. Like here's 3 las cannons that hit on 2s in a vehicle. I think we're just going to see that over and over.
Yeah, I mean, we also we talk about, so going back to the Cabal choice, being able to, so they have the Warlord, or the quote unquote chapter trait of you get to reroll 1 hit, and this is excellent. This is just ends up being so amazing when you have a bunch of transports with exactly 1 good gun. It turns out being able to reroll out 1 hit every time just dramatically changes the outcome in terms of how often you get to shoot that thing or hit. So,
for sure. So, more concretely, what about your list would you change up? So you said you think you'd probably drop it down from a brigade.
Yes.
How would that look? What are you cutting, and what do you think you get to bring in?
Okay, so I would be cutting the Taluses right out. They're good. They're just not good in my list, or as good as they should be. I'd be going down to Battalion, and then I would pay for an auxiliary support detachment, I believe is the name of it, the 2 CP detachment that lets you bring a thing, and my thing would be Drazar.
That 4th HQ slot, that is that good? 2 CP?
So I think it is. I think it's also just telling that I think the command. So I think the stratagems in this book. I'm not. There's some that are very spiky. There's some that are really excellent. But I never found myself being like, wow, I need more command points. I really desperately need more command points during the tournament. That'll obviously change depending on if you're using like the Cult of Strife rules, because I know they have more options. If you're bringing the Hellions, you need to dedicate command points to using that stratagem. So your mileage may vary. But I found, I'd rather just have a guy that makes 5 attacks, fights twice, hits on 2s, wounds on 2s, essentially for many things, and does 3 damage a hit. Like, I'd rather just have him that he also improves all the incubi. Speaking of, in my subsequent list, I'd be taking the points out of Taluses and injecting them correct all the way into incubi. I'd be going up to 30 incubi in my list. They're great. They're even better than when I played them because I made a mistake and neglected to add additional damage per unmodified hit roll, wound rolls of 6, which might have really chopped through some more Space Marines at the time. So I think incubi are excellent. Going to sort of slightly more tournament experience, the Tormentors, the effect of essentially putting Phylast on somebody if you roll well, extremely powerful. I completely underestimated it, and it really did a lot for me. So that's most of the points change between going down Taluses and going up incubi. On my Scourge unit, I brought Haywire Cannons. And that was mostly because I just didn't have the points to bring as many Dark Lances as I wanted. In this list, I would bring 4 Dark Lances in a squad. Scourge are this really interesting unit that can move 14 inches. They can natively deep strike. They can have a bunch of heavy weapons. It also gives me the ability to, if I want, keep the Archon back, sort of like 8th edition Archon style, have a relic that gives reroll wound rolls of 1 to core units as well as Blades for Hire. And basically use them as sort of a very mobile, safe, heavy anti-vehicle threat.
Right, so it's like 4 shots, hitting on 4s, reeling 1s, reeling miss at like 8, -3. What's it? D3 plus 3?
-4, D3 plus 3.
-4, wow. Yeah. and then you can jump them, right?
Yep, you can jump shoot jump them. And yeah, you can hide them. You can get them wherever they need to be. They're excellent. I think that is the majority. I switch out. I like the Red Glaive. I'd like to try out the Tri-Tech Whip on my Succubus. See how that goes. Maybe try the Double Fight stratagem. Maybe switch to Cult of Strife. See how that works. See how that plays. But otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good about the sub-faction choices I made.
Awesome.
Question for you. So I know you're going down 3 units with losing the Taluses. Are any of your other total counts going down? The reason I ask, I know you felt like you were giving up a lot of points with grind them down.
Yeah, so I did lose quite a bit to grind them down. Chris ground me out every round.
Yep.
And Kevin came close to grinding me out every round. Total number of units would be going down. I am going up to 5 troop choices in my list because I want to bring 2 min-sized squad of racks to hold backfield objectives. I had warriors in my list before. Racks are cheaper and they do the job better. So that's what I would do for that. I would keep the same number of fast attacks, but that's just me trying to play test more with regards to, I want a squad of Scourge for doing the jump, shoot, jump, heavy attack stuff. I want a squad of Scourge for doing the do some of the maneuver objectives, and then I have one more squad of Scourge. Mostly because they're 60 points, and I think that they provide some more utility that I might be looking for.
And then elites, obviously, you're just upping the sizes, which will help because it's just going to be harder to fully kill one of those squads. And then you're going down 3 Taluses. Okay.
Yes, I think I'm going up to Raiders. We might still be getting ground out pretty hard, but I think that the list in this configuration is kind of leaning more into moving fast and hitting hard, whereas before I think I had a little more tankiness in the form of the Talos Pain engines.
That sounds really neat, though. I'm looking forward to seeing that on the table.
Yeah,
The actual table, hopefully.
we'll see.
God
if,
willing.
if anyone can get their hands on Incubi
Or homunculus or Rax.
Homunculi, oh my goodness.
Don't you have incubi?
I do. I have 15 incubi. I need 15 more incubi.
Oh no, I was talking to Ben. Didn't you get like? Are there incubi in Blood of the Phoenix?
Blood of the Phoenix.
The box
Hiding
still
Pain? Or yeah, Burns has my Blood of the Phoenix now.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's everything I had to say about the event. I do want to thank you guys all for participating in it again. It was awesome. We had a really engaged chat. At some points it was less engaged, but then I was later told by many people that they loved watching it and people were painting to it, playing a game with friends, hanging out with, putting it on the background. So for everyone who watched that and is also watching this, thanks. I had a great time. Hopefully, I don't know if we're going to do exactly a streamed tournament again, but maybe we will. We'll see.
I think that was a nice benefit of TTS that you were able to stream it so easily compared to an actual live tournament. And I think that the time limits, while we did have more time to play, kind of showed off that like people can really play Warhammer in TTS, and it's not an incredible burden that you might think it is.
Yeah. I only gave us like half an hour more in each round than normal, and most games we watched ended. I think only one game in the whole event didn't end, and it still got to turn 4. So
yeah, turn 4. Keep in mind that game was also like once again Burns' second game with the faction. I've played quite a few games with Death Watch, but it's also been a while since I played Death Watch, so I was kind of having to refamiliarize myself with that.
And you guys generated some of the most complicated board states and TO questions I've ever seen out of a game. So yeah.
We talk about Agents Effect. I love the new Agents Effect. It's so cool.
Yes. I got asked a judge question that I did not know the answer to, and still don't know the answer to. But yeah, if you Agents Effect a holocat, if you Agents Effect the combat revival stratagem, and then a master apothecary tries to use it, how many CP does it cost?
Wouldn't it be
these
1
two
CP?
madmen asked me this question because Burns Agents Effected it, and then immediately killed the apothecary after making me agonize over what the answer to this question is.
It turns out I couldn't convert him into points, so I probably should just convert him into points.
Yeah, and the answer is she's dead. You can't use it. Which made me feel less bad about ruling a quote against Kevin on a rule that I just don't know what the correct ruling is. So hopefully we see an FAQ about that.
I guess that's... question.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for you on that, Burns, or
Sure.
everyone. Is this better than old Agents of Act?
I'm
I'm actually on yes. I think it is better.
I think that's a very difficult question. I think there are two complicated effects that play I feel like they play very differently.
When you say better, do you mean like this is like play wise, or just like I want to win the game?
Would you rather be the Agents of Act ability?
I think the old one.
It's tough. I think I quite like the new one, and I don't want to comment on which one is the more powerful. I think the original gave you a better. I think you could, if you had a stronger game plan, the old one let you ensure that game plan would succeed, or it would ensure that you could screw up your opponent's game plan if you knew it better than them. I think the new one is more along the lines of like, if you have a general idea about what your opponent's trying to do with their list and what's good in their faction, you can really lean in on that and make sure that you tax them a lot for it, which is a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun decision making. It's like less immediately critical than the old Agents Effect, but I think they did a good job making it. Like if they don't want to have that kind of effect anymore, this is like a nice successor.
Yeah, I think the new one's very. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
So obviously, from a raw power perspective, the 0 command point stratagem is worse than the 4 command point stratagem. I think so. Even if you were to say Agents of Act was still 3 CP, there are some very powerful 3 CP stratagems, and you can kind of like make some arguments. There's like not an argument that the new Agents of Act isn't the best 0 CP stratagem there is right now.
Oh, for sure.
And the fact is, it can't be underrated that like a 0 CP stratagem that you want to use is kind of mind-bogglingly good. It's like as free as it could be.
Yeah, it's a very exciting effect.
I totally agree. I think the new Agents effect is extremely good. I think it's going to take a while for us all to really figure out how you're supposed to use it. I still think the old one is scarier, especially with the changes to 9th edition, where you can use it to do some like pretty silly things. I have more experience with it in GSC than in Dark Eldar, and yes, the GSC version is a little bit better because it's 3 CP, not 4. But you could do some very silly things with it, like. I've like taken a unit hostage, and then my opponent goes like, "All right, I'm gonna like spend the CP to like walk out of combat," and you're just like, "No."
Yeah,
You're still in melee with me. Sorry, and then
just try again.
Yeah, like, for sure. I think
you're shooting at a knight. They're like, I want to rotate like that new list. You're like, all right, I have like a gajillion shots into a knight with like all damage 4 plus D3. Just like I want to rotate my shields. You're like, nah, I think your knight's just gonna die instead. I'll just spend the 4 CP and kill it. That being said, I'm not saying it's a wide margin. Like these two things are very close, and it's also like list dependent, right? Like Burns was saying, he wasn't feeling he needed to spend a bunch of command points, and I think, and a lot of old like 8th edition Dark Eldar lists lean that way. And if you're like that, the old Agents effect was absurd. If you're bringing something like a detachment of Cult of Strife, where like I want to spend 1 million command points for like rerolls and extra attacks, then like yeah, I'd much rather have the stratagem that's just free. So it depends, but yeah.
Yeah, I've been sitting I've sat in a lot of conversations between Ben and Kevin about this building construction, and with other members of our group. And there's oftentimes when you build a competitive list, there's going to be you take your command points and you divvy it up each turn. You're like every turn. Sometimes I build a list that every turn I need to do this stratagem every turn if I want to succeed. And it turns out that's where this new Agents effect is going to be incredible, because no longer can you ever just be like, oh yeah, it'll always cost this amount. Well, if you ever face Drukhari, like this is the option where you might just not be able to do it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, like Al, I think like that Cult of Strife list, I suspect that every time a witch blob touched an enemy unit, 4 command points were spent on that witch blob, which means that you really have to know where your command points are going if you plan on spending 8 command points on 2 units. Like that means you're really only playing with 4. I guess my only other question is, other than that, was there anything else that jumped out to anyone who played it, either I guess Burns or Kevin, as you played against Dark Eldar? Anything else in the book that like we need an FAQ, either just like this is absurdly too powerful, or like this like there's just like an interaction here that's like not obvious, or like we just like don't know how it works?
I don't think so. But I'm, as a list builder, I'm one to stray away from maybe going into effects that would have that. There's a lot of rules in this book. It can certainly be that there are. So I know what they do need to FAQ. They need to decide if a real space raid gets 3 sub-factions, or if each unit in a real space raid gets a sub-faction of your choice. That'd be an important part of the FAQ.
That's fair.
Yeah, right now is written, you could make an argument. I'm not saying you're going to succeed, but you can make an argument that each unit in a real space raid gets to choose which sub-faction it belongs to. This doesn't mean all Coven are Prophets of Flesh. It means each Coven eligible unit can in fact be from a different Coven, or perhaps have Coven-specific rules.
All my inferior Prophets of Flesh, all of my raiders are Dark Technomancers.
Yes. Now, as we looked at this top 4, they clearly did not allow this person to do it. I'm sure this person might not have even brought it up, because it is kind of a very much it feels very much like that's not how it's supposed to be. But they should clarify that. They should clarify. It might be a lot of Agents of Ect text. I would like, maybe we'll see some more interesting interactions with how Agents of Ect apply command point modifiers to things.
I think the only thing I want other than Agents of Ect is just a confirmation that yes, you really can put anything in a raider, regardless of what keywords that raider has on it. Like, yes, this is a witch raider. It gets +1 hit flyers. My Cabal the Blackheart can go in it. Because as of now, you definitely can do that. But I just want to see, like, this is the intention. Like, yes, we meant to do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't feel like the intention, or they've, I don't know, the real space raid already kind of broke down typically what I was thinking of as like Eldar being Dark Eldar being 3 sub factions. So who knows? But I don't know. What's the point of calling yourself a sub faction if you're not really?
So yeah, I mean, this expands a little bit beyond 3D6's charge of competitive Warhammer, but real space raids are an extremely narratively sourced piece of rule, like rules text. Real space raids are things in the narrative are exactly what should be happening. Archons currying favors, convincing witch cults and homunculi coven to come along to catch some prey. So I think this is another codex that really is like A+ on a thematic and rules level.
All right.
Right.
So I think I can say that is everything I had to say. How about you guys?
Yeah. I have nothing left on this.
Burns.
Yeah.
I know witches aren't your favorite, but how do you feel about witches being like a very strong witch subfaction being hidden behind another book?
It's I don't know. I don't know if I've completely like thought out sort of how I feel about it. I think I'd want to see what GW's intention was with regards to what the release schedule was originally before COVID happened. I know what I do know is that I think they were trying to go for a 2 codexes a month release schedule before COVID happened. So I think it's more likely that we were supposed to get the Drukhari Codex 6 months before we see this, and that this was sort of supposed to be the first like injection of newness into the Drukhari. So I don't know. Not sure how to feel about it.
Also, one of my orc opponent is saying that like, yeah, my Spectre skill team did have an impact on the board, maybe not as much of an impact as I initially realized. So I will
keep them in.
So yeah. So actually, I guess my one last statement for today is when's Craft World's coming out? GW. I want the Craft World's Codex.
Please make Tau playable first.
Clearly, I need to continue doing my work as the Deathwatch player. Seeing a major being taken down by 2 Xenos races is unacceptable, and I'll be doing my due diligence to make sure that does not continue to happen.
I think you have an excellent start to that. I think with the inclusion of heavy Primaris intercessors, the Deathwatch in general are about to see a spike in relevancy for tournament play.
Yeah, I think, all right, this will be our last thing. Kevin and I were discussing Deathwatch, and I was insisting Deathwatch was excellent, and he was insisting that they had a low win rate. And then we both came to the realization that we've been playing on TTS where heavy intercessors exist, and in the real world, that kit isn't out. And a massive amount of Deathwatch's like power as a faction is in heavy intercessors and things hiding behind heavy intercessors in the same unit. And then we both went, oh yeah, maybe 28% win rate is like reasonable for that faction right now. But I think we are both expecting a huge spike in that once heavy intercessors are really out and about.
I have a little bit of info since then. I was listening into the Up podcast that includes Peter the Falcon, the guy who does the stats, and the heavy intercessors like through TTS and that it hasn't really changed that much.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, never mind. That's it.
Forget everything we said. All right. So let's bring the show to a close. Thank you everybody very much for tuning into this week's episode. I'd like to thank my contributors, Kevin Lee, Benjamin Rubenstein, and Mike Burns. You can find the podcast on YouTube and on Twitch. We stream live every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about next week, but hopefully there's another tournament that we can talk about, because I've really missed analyzing tournament lists. So
I agree.
Yeah. So until next week, take care. Throw us your likes, your subscribes, and do some smashing of them. And don't roll any ones.
And ringing of bells.
Yes, also ringing of bells. Thank you. All right, take care.